everyone is doing all right. This is Jamarl Thomas, meaning me, the person who is your host. I am Jamarl Thomas. I am your host. This is the Progressive Soapbox. By the way, before I start, if you guys enjoy the content, please consider supporting the content. I looked at the videos yesterday, and half of them were demonetized because half of those videos talked about things like war and things that YouTube doesn't necessarily like. But that said, if you enjoy the content, please consider supporting the content. We like to say even $1 helps through either PayPal or Patreon. Earlier today for lunch, my wife and I went to the sauna. When I was traveling, I used to go to the sauna right often because I needed to pull off additional weight that I couldn't necessarily pull off during typical treatments because it was painful and they were expensive. And so the sauna was think of it as a gateway. It pulls out heavy metals and those type of things that me at least, typically kept in just because of Dallas and stuff. But I didn't necessarily do that when I was back in the States. And so today I went to the sauna. The goal being to pull off additional weight, that type of stuff. And I go in and I am nearly naked. I'm wearing like trunks, but nothing else. And there were a bunch of other men in the sauna fully clothed. Now, this is kind of odd to me. Now, the only saunas I've ever went to were the ones that were in Europe. And in Germany, they would start naked. Nobody was wearing anything. In fact, me wearing anything was looked at was this kind of level of disdain. That wasn't something I did back in the States. And so me doing it, this was kind of like a new experience. But as I went into the sauna, I kind of made that point to the guy who was sitting there and said, when I was in Europe, they didn't wear anything. So this starts a conversation between me and the other guys that's sitting across from me, and him and I start talking. The other people in the sauna don't particularly like this, and they eventually leave. But this conversation goes everywhere from just kind of racial politics over to Trump and Russia. And that's where it gets interesting. Now, I study this stuff and I cover this stuff constantly. So a conversation that I'm going to have with somebody who's just randomly in the sauna is like me when I was playing tournament chess, just coming up with a random person who's playing. But this gets into a conversation who's like, oh God, he's so corrupt and I can't believe that they let him off and Barr lied. Barr needs to be put in prison. And this goes into this really great conversation I'm having with a guy that he completely loses. Because the problem is the moment that you delve into this and you start asking questions like, what are you really angry about? Like, did Barr have agency? Meaning, could he not reveal Mueller stuff? Yeah, it's his job. Mueller requested it, showing that Mueller had to request it. It was his choice to make. He made the choice. Has anything substantially changed? Meaning, you got the entirety of the report. When I sat there and read Mueller's letter, and I looked at the date, and the date said March, and I'm like, why are we talking about this? The report is already released. You can read Mueller's report. It's there. Why are we talking about how Barr characterized it? The reason we're talking about it is because they didn't like the fact that Barr was able to set the narrative. That's the first point. That's the only reason we will be talking about it. And looking further into it, they didn't like the fact that Barr was able to set the narrative. And this notion that there's something nefarious and sinister and Barr is somehow concealing something is the ditch that they're continuously digging. It's like, what is your complaint? You're complaining about something that happened in the past that Barr had every justification to do? What is your complaint? You have the entirety of the document at this point. To which he says, well, I haven't read the Mueller document. I said, well, I've gone through it. I've covered it for the show. I'm telling you, no collusion between Trump and Russia. He says, okay. I said, do you at the very least accept that part? Yeah, okay. Then what are we arguing about? You're arguing about obstruction of justice for something that you agree doesn't exist? Yeah, that was a good conversation. That conversation, however, was taking place on a higher level also among lefties that are in the media, one that buys into the Russiagate stuff and one that doesn't. This is... where is it? Right here. This is Mehdi Hassan. Mehdi Hasan has worked for Al Jazeera. He currently works for The Intercept, if I'm not mistaken, unless he's no longer works there. Disagree with him massively on this Trump-Russia stuff. There's other stuff that I do agree with him on. He, to some degree, is a lefty. And this is Buzzsaw. Buzzsaw I've covered on more than one occasion. I've said often, if Buzzsaw is walking your way, walk the other way. Put your head down, cover your eyes, make sure he doesn't see you looking at him, and walk the other way. Nobody listens to me. Nobody follows my instructions on this. Cenk Uygur gets deboned. What's that other one? There's been a list of people that I've covered. Recently, Maddow, where he takes it upon himself to go through like 25 or 26 of her shows in order to show the ridiculousness of the conspiracy theories she was peddling. Nobody listens. Nobody listens. Today, Hassan didn't listen. And Hassan, based on the shenanigans with Barr and the mainstream media screaming about something that took place in the past and doesn't matter one iota because everybody can see the report for themselves, that non-issue was the thing that Hassan wanted to pick a fight about. To some degree, Hassan is even talking about me in this, because I was one of those people that was chest stomping. The problem with his argument here is that what they're talking about in the media is something that took place in the past. And there's no... I guess I'm saying this. If the main issue here is that Barr could have released Mueller's summary, what does it matter? When you don't need the summary, you can read the report. If that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. So it's like, so what are we arguing about? We're arguing, or they're angry, that Barr was able to set the narrative of events that they themselves wanted to control. Otherwise, I don't know what we're talking about. Otherwise, digging further into this notion that there's some kind of conspiracy at the Attorney General's office, and that Barr is presiding over some cover-up by not releasing Mueller's documents. He's Attorney General. It was his choice. So beyond it being his choice, you have the entirety of the report. You can read it for yourself. All of this seems much to do about nothing, and yet this is what was all over mainstream media, and this was the topic of discussion, and it just so happened this was what Hassan wanted to pick a fight about with Maté. Let's take a look at this on Twitter. This was awesome. I love these debates. Here's the wild part. Maté and Hassan had orbited each other once before on an issue. I think it was dealing with Tulsi Gabbard. And Maté backs away. He backed off. They engage. They get to a certain point. Hassan says something. Maté says, "You're right." And he leaves it. That by itself should have given you fair heads up of, well, maybe he's not going to engage in something that he's not going to win. What's the point of fighting if you're not going to win, right? And this is one of those things. If he was willing to back away from you in the other thing, when he was able to concede, okay, maybe you had a point. On this particular issue, he didn't back away. He's been on this issue for 3 years, covering this issue, and to some degree, his reputation, political reputation, even reputation almost as a reporter, has been staked on this very specific issue. He knows it in and out. And this is the guy that you should just pick a fight with. Just as a heads up, Hassan doesn't win this fight at all. Right here. All right, let's start here. This is kind of bad for those folks who were taking a victory lap on Twitter and suggesting that Barr couldn't be lying about the report, because why would Mueller stay silent? Well, again, a report surfaces that shows Mueller didn't like the characterization that William Barr made. Catch is, though, Barr didn't lie in the report. Mueller just wanted his own reports released. Whatever you want to think about this, again, understand that we're talking about a summary when the entirety of the report has already been released. What does the characterization matter in a summary if you got the entire report? This is what's so mind-numbing about this, that we're talking about this. All of the big issues that are taking place in the world, they're doing a fucking coup in Venezuela. And you're telling me, oh, I didn't like the way this was summarized. And now this is a media issue. It's just, I gotta be honest, this is mind-numbing at times. Like, the unreality of what takes place in Washington. I mean, they're going after, again, this is everything to do with not being able to control the narrative. They don't like the narrative that Barr set. Fact of the matter is, no collusion was right. Whether you want to talk about more nuance with regards to obstruction, I have to be honest, I care less about the obstruction the moment that you tell me that the original thing didn't exist. And by the way, Mueller still didn't come to a conclusion on obstruction, so that wasn't a lie. All right, so, and let's keep going. And I got to be honest, I don't care about this. So right here, Aaron Maté. The article says Mueller acknowledged that Barr was not accurate or misleading. The Mueller was concerned with having his summaries released and the media coverage, and his main concern was public understanding of the obstruction, not the victory lap issue of collusion. Let me read that again. Buzzsaw steps in. Article says Mueller acknowledged that Barr was not inaccurate or misleading, which is kind of a big deal, right? If you're going to make this case that Barr lied, that is somewhat of a problem to deal with. That statement was not inaccurate or misleading, that Mueller was concerned with having his summaries released and about the media coverage. And his main concern was public understanding of obstruction, not the victory lap issue of collusion. And he highlights each of these in the article that Hassan gave the in tweeting. All right, let's keep going. There's more. You literally wrote he had concerns about how the media coverage was characterizing his probe on an obstruction issue, totally ignoring how Mueller wrote that Barr did not capture the context, nature, and the substance of his report. It's literally in the first paragraph of the piece. The problem is the other part is also in the piece. Everything that Aaron Maté said was right. But fair enough. Both exist in the same article. All right, let's keep going. Let's step in. All right, let me go back. All right, let's keep going. Also, and this is somebody named Will Salian, this sentence, that Mueller said the letter wasn't misleading, comes from a Department of Justice spokeswoman, not the Post. The AG who delivered a misleading letter and misleading press conference says Mueller privately told him that he wasn't misleading. Aaron Maté. Mueller's point about context, nature, and substance was made as part of his effort to have the summaries released. Barr disagreed, wanting the full report release. The Mueller letter, as we now see it, does not raise specific objections to Barr's initial characterization. Understand what they're arguing about. They're arguing about something that took place in the past. The Mueller report has been released. They're arguing about summaries of report that has already been released. This is a certain degree of absurd. But this is their argument. But that said, people can argue about anything, so fair enough. Maté's point, I think, is the most salient. What Barr wanted the report out. The report is out. Mueller may have wanted his summaries out, but there's nothing that Mueller necessarily agrees with that Barr wrote in the report, meaning nothing in the report is disingenuous or dishonest. Mueller just wanted his summaries out, if that makes sense. Let's keep going. And by the way, it's Barr's discretion to disagree with Mueller on this. Clearly, because he disagreed with Mueller on this and he didn't release Mueller's stuff. It's his discretion. Mueller's point about context, nature, and substance was made as part of his effort to have the summaries released. Barr disagreed, wanting the full report released. The Mueller letter, as we now see, does not raise any specific objections to Barr's initial characterization. And I've read the letter. I think I've even posted it in the other video. Mehdi Hassan. Yep. Mueller's totally fine with Barr. Got you. That's being surly and dickish. That's what that's saying, which tells me that you don't have a point. It tells me that you're losing this argument. Never said that. I said that Mueller raised zero objections to Barr's rendering of the core victory lap issue of the collusion, and that their dispute centered on whether to release the summaries first or to wait to have them release the report. That's undeniable now. Understand what he's saying. This is very important. The issue that we were taking the victory lap on was that there was no collusion. The obstruction mattered less. The lefties that was pushing back on this notion of Trump, Russia, and all this other stuff. Our issue was that there was no collusion between Trump and Russia. Yeah, we're taking a victory lap on that because we've been saying it from the get-go. Barr's letter doesn't change that one iota. Mehdi Hassan saying that this looks bad for the people taking a victory lap. It doesn't look bad for the people taking a victory lap because nothing has changed. I hope I'm nailing that down. I don't want to beat a dead horse on this, but Mehdi Hassan doesn't have a leg to stand on. I never said that Mueller raised zero objections to Barr's rendering of the core, quote-unquote, victory lap issue of collusion, and that their dispute centered on whether to release the summaries first, which was Mueller's contention, or to wait to release the full report, which is Barr's contention. That's undeniable now. If you had the option of releasing the entire report, why not just release the entire report? That's what Barr wanted. That's not an illogical proposition. Mehdi Hassan, do you believe Barr misrepresented and spun the contents of the Mueller report in his original summary? Yes or no? Do you agree that he's been right with everything that he said up to this point, which is why you've positioned or tweaked yourself to this? I guess my point is this. Maté is dead right on this. The original premise that Hassan started with was people taking a victory lap should feel some kind of way now that Mueller has come out and said X. And Hassan's point, and Maté's point is, well, no, nothing has changed. Barr wanted to release the entirety of the report. Our contention was that there was no collusion. Nothing has changed at all. Your ding at people taking a victory lap is misplaced. And he's right. Do you believe Barr misrepresented and spun the contents of the Mueller report in his original summary, yes or no? Overall, no. On the core, underlying issue of Trump-Russia conspiracy, no. And that's true. That's true. On obstruction, I think he should have included highlighted words below, as I alluded to in my latest. But what difference does it make? It was Mueller who chose to punt, and this report came out anyway. Mueller was never going to bring the report to the public. It wasn't his job. That wasn't what he was going to do. He was going to bring it to the Attorney General. Barr released the entirety of the report. If Mueller was making a summary because he believed that the public wasn't going to see the report, then it makes sense to make the summary. It does not make sense to release the summary when you have the entirety of the report and you're going to release the entirety of the report. This is much to do about nothing. Maté is right. Maté is right. Bow your head and walk the other way, man. Walk the other way, dude. And look, he even shows it. He even says, apparently he wrote an article. Fourth, if we had confidence after thorough investigation of the facts that the president clearly did not commit obstruction of justice, we would so state. Based on the facts that the applicable legal standard, however, we're unable to reach that judgment. Now, this is the obstruction thing. His point is, look, Mueller had the potential to call for obstruction. He didn't do it. He didn't do it. So if you chose to punt, you chose to punt. You're kicking it to the other team. The other team made a choice. All right, so right here. Mehdi Hassan. Overall, no. One day, Aaron, you might look back at this moment in your career when you took at face value the words of the Iran-Contra cover-up guys as he covered up criminality by the most dishonest president in living memory, and you either felt ashamed or silly or both. This is called losing an argument. That's what that's called. That's called being surly and bitter after getting eaten alive. That's what that is. One day, man, you're going to look back at this moment. There are some people that hate Donald Trump. And I think this is where it comes out. This is kind of the argument that people make when they're talking about regime change. Bashar al-Assad is a bad guy. It's like, yeah, but is it really the United States, job to go into the country and take him down? And does it really make sense that this guy will drop chemical weapons on his own people when he's already taken back the territory? And eventually, when all of the arguments, all of this kind of legal nonsense, all of the humanitarian bombs that they want to drop, when all of that's laid bare, he's a bad guy. He's a bad guy. Hassan is using the bad guy argument. After all of this other nonsense that he was going after Maté about, falls away, exposed. You still get what boils down to humanitarian bombs. He was a bad guy. The most dishonest president in living memory. That's the bad guy argument. All of the other stuff fell away. There was no argument. Much to do about nothing. He's a bad guy. I'm not interested in your petty substance-free insults, and accordingly, I think you're projecting. You took a shot at those taking a quote-unquote victory lap, as these exchanges show. That was unfounded. Don't blame me or Barr because you bought into a conspiracy theory. It is a conspiracy theory. If you're saying that Russia and Trump were colluding, and after 3 years of investigations by aggressive attorneys trying to squeeze this person and that person to get anything they could on the president of the United States, and they came up with bupkis, and even went to the pleasure of writing a 400-page, beautifully bounded report showing no collusion, punting on this idea of obstruction. But again, are we really going to find obstruction when there was no there, in the first place for the president to even obstruct on? You're believing in a conspiracy theory. I mean, at this point, the overt perspective of things, especially after the Mueller report, is that there was no collusion. Mehdi, Hassan, the conspiracy theorists. Let's keep going. Yeah, it sounds a bit of projecting. Also, I have some news for you, Mehdi, which you might want to reflect on. Barr is not the only official with a bad record of Mueller peddling. This was when Mueller was pushing the Iraq of weapons mass destruction stuff. Hassan is making the point that I didn't place my faith in Mueller. You did. I took a look at Trump Tower meeting without Mueller report and clearly see that Don Jr. colluding, lying, and covering up. You bizarrely go out of your way to give Don Jr. the benefit of the doubt, as we've discussed before. This is a Russiagater. This is the Russiagate argument. The argument is transposed. This is almost like bitterness about not being able to get Trump out of office, using Mueller in this kind of device that goes beyond the ballot box. And it goes back to, you guys are taking a victory lap. Ha, shouldn't you be bothered by this? That gets shot down. Then it goes to, well, do you believe the Barr misrepresented? Then it goes to, Trump's a bad guy. Then it goes to Russiagate. We're back at Russiagate. This is amazing. This is like a deconstruction of Hassan, right? I mean, Hassan is usually on TV doing this to other people. He's getting deconstructed on Twitter. So, all right, Maté, you want to revive that one? You looked at the Trump Tower meeting and get it wrong, as the Mueller report shows. Who was Don Jr. colluding with? A British music publicist? I never said Don Jr. didn't mislead the public. In fact, I said the opposite. And then Aaron Maté goes and shows the story in which he does just that. Hassan, yeah, you were really strong in your denunciation of the brazen lies on the innocent podcast. So Mehdi Hassan is attacking him now for not denouncing him strongly enough. And even that gets shot down. He shows the article where he's going after Don Jr. As you appear regularly on conspiracy theorists full of networks full of liars, MSNBC, and yet your umbrage is reserved for not forcefully enough, in your view, denouncing Don Jr. for lying about inconsequential meeting. By the way, Mueller didn't indict Don Jr. for lying. Maybe blame him, because this is somewhat problematic. You're saying that you understood what was taking place because you had a feeling about it. You saw it. I don't need Mueller to tell me what took place. I could see it with my own eyes. I love those people that got a feeling about things, just know what's in the world just based on their feelings. In this particular case, though, Mueller didn't indict Don Jr. He had the potential to do it. He was indicting everybody else. Why not Don Jr.? Just saying. This seems like a losing argument or losing position to me. Hold on. I thought Mueller was the liar who gave us Iraq weapons of mass destruction. I can't keep up with you, Aaron. One moment Mueller's your savior, next he isn't. It's almost as if you only quote him when you agree with him, say it ain't so. Aaron Maté, I really hope you reflect on this. My point is that we judge claims based on the available facts. It is my counterpoint to your inconsistent views on who we trust. Per your logic, we can't believe Barr because of Iran-Contra, but we can believe Mueller, notwithstanding weapons of mass destruction. His point is, this kind of, you're believing Barr on his face, but you're okay with believing Mueller in this case. Somebody says Mehdi gets owned again. Right, it's my counterpoint to your inconsistent views on who we trust. We can't trust Barr because of Iran-Contra, but we can believe Mueller, notwithstanding weapons of mass destruction. Yeah, Mehdi gets eaten alive on this. I'm going to put the Twitter thread on the video. This was massively enjoyable to watch. I'm sorry, this was massively enjoyable. As I was reading it, especially since I had the conversation with dude at the gym, and this was it was a really close conversation of this. I mean, this is more high level than the guy was going, but still. Bard, he isn't the first Bard to get in the hot water in the last year. Even if they push him for impeachment, it's already fruitless effort. Oh, I think I read that one already. I could have swore I saw a super chat come up. But yeah, man, this was an awesome conversation. So I'm not going to keep this much longer. I have one more video that I want to do. And I actually want to get some chess in. Democrats are demented. And by the way, the guy who I was having a conversation with today, I asked him something very basic. I said, think of all the things that are in your world. All of them. And within the context of your world, the United States makes up 5% of the population. And paying attention to the 5% of the population, can you think of all the things that are wrong on a macro level? Like the problems we have in the country. If there's mass amounts of poverty, the number of kids who are able to eat, the number of people who are able to get health care and food, meaning not having to make the choice between getting their health care, their medication, or food, or rationing medications because they can't afford it. People just in dire situations in the country itself, even people who work, who are on this kind of hamster wheel. It's like, yeah, the economy is running well and people have jobs, but many of these people are working multiple jobs. I have uncles that were working like 2-3 jobs. And you're engaging me with an unreality. Something that after 3 years of investigation, meaning all of what you wanted came to fruition, and it still comes back and say your original premise was wrong. And instead of leaving that original premise and dealing with actual real issues, you push further into the conspiracy and focus on things that don't matter. The entirety of the report is released. Why are you talking to me about a summary? And I'm saying this is from the standpoint of mainstream media that found this to be an important topic to talk about. Do you honestly believe that somebody who's barely making ends meet, which is, by the way, at the very least half, if not more of the country, cares about this? Just saying, man. It's an aggravating thing for a party to focus on this very particular issue. Because this is not the thing that's adversely affecting them when they're trying to make ends meet. That's not the thing that's affecting them at all. And this, to some degree, it's a deflection. I think the public recognizes it as a deflection. There's a small segment of the population that tends to vote Democrat that looks at this and may buy into this. But they buy into this for the same reason billionaires or millionaires buying the tax cuts. You know what I mean? Republican Party comes out and says, hey, these tax cuts are going to do awesome. Yeah, it's going to do awesome for you. It's going to put more money in your pocket. It's a self-interest argument. It's like the trickle-down economics. It's like that argument. The argument of trickle-down economics. Hey, if you give a ton of money to millionaires and billionaires, some will trickle out of their pockets. And it would make the world a better place. We can have radical self-interest, and somehow everybody is going to benefit. Of course, that was nonsense. But it was a self-serving argument these guys were putting. I'm saying the Russia stuff is a self-serving argument for Democrats. And yeah, Mehdi Hassan got eaten alive. So I'm going to end this. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. And I like to say even $1 helps because YouTube has been vicious. I would even go so far as this past month. So even $1 helps. Thanks all. Have a good one.